lead us in the pledge tonight, please?
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First up is public comments. Now's the appropriate time for visitors in the audience to be recognized and speak on items both on the agenda and of general concerns of the patrons of the district. There will be a limit of 3 minutes for an individual, 5 for a group spokesperson. No speaker shall speak more than twice on any issue. The board is legally obligated to maintain confidentiality concerning district personnel. Therefore, matters concerning district personnel will not be discussed. Is there anybody that'd like to speak to the board tonight? There being none, we'll move to our next item, which is a recognition of our outgoing board member. And it's my pleasure to say a few words. And if anybody else would like to pipe in afterwards, that'd be great. I want to thank Karina Tinsky for serving on this board for 4 years. You've been a great board member. I want to make you cry. It's going to happen. You've been a great board member. We've enjoyed having the perspective from a parent of 2 young children. I have always felt that we needed that on this board, and you brought that to us. A perspective from a Green River High School grad, which is pretty cool. I think you've done an outstanding job. You will obviously be missed on this board by not only the voters, the students, also the employees and your fellow board members. We will miss your dedication, your constructive and positive involvement, and of course your emotion, your tears. We're going to miss your tears for sure. But anybody else would like to add anything?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Brenda.
Just thank you, Karina. You just provided a smile to our board always, and that was so appreciated. And your financial background has been amazing because it's not my strength. So thank you so much. You're going to be missed.
Thank you.
Brenda.
Thank you. I think the compassion that you brought to the board in some difficult times that you helped us get through have just really made an impact. So thank you so much for your service. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your service and your inspiring comments, and you'll be missed.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I always appreciate the input that Karina would give us in our meetings and on when we were discussing different issues. And I've appreciated getting to know you too. You're wonderful.
Thank you. I want to say thank you too. You've been a great mentor and teacher over the past 2 years. So I appreciate that. And I will miss sitting. This past year has been great sitting next to you, getting to know you more. And I'm glad that I will still get to see you at dance with the girls. So you won't get too far.
I will still be around.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
For hiring me.
Yeah.
So on behalf of the board, here's a little gift for you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you. Want to save your parting shots to the end?
No, if I could do it right now,
Sure,
that
that's
would be great. Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. And tonight's a bittersweet night. I told my husband I wasn't going to cry, and they knew I was going to cry. I really enjoyed my last 4 years on the board. And when election time came, it was really a tough decision. I enjoyed the people I worked with, the opportunities that I was given. But being on a board of this nature and how involved our board is in the district is wonderful, but it also has a lot of time commitment. My life is going in a place where there's not enough time I felt I could dedicate to serve the board like it needed and deserved to be served. So I decided to not rerun, but hopefully in the future, I will get things a little more organized and be back, because I enjoy it. It's good for the community. The board is phenomenal, and I really enjoyed my time. I'd like to thank the voters 4 years ago for voting for me and having that confidence that I can serve the district, and hopefully I served you well. And if I do rerun, I hope that I'll get your vote again at that time. Thank you to the board. You have been incredible. What I've learned in the last 4 years is beyond measure. We've had ups and downs, highs and lows. There's so many, but it was such a wonderful experience. And the fact that we were able to do it together, make the best decision we could possible, and support each other was great. A good experience. The district is in good hands. From personal experience dealing with all 6 of you on the board, I can tell you with confidence that your district, our district, is in great hands after I leave, and it will continue to be because of the people we have on the board. And you guys are doing a phenomenal job and continue to do so. The district itself, I've seen so much growth. We've been through anguish. We've been through downtimes, closing schools, disagreements, things like that, and yet we still managed to come out on top. We still managed to be the best that we can be better than all the rest. And that is something to be proud of. And I am proud. I'm proud of the district. I'm proud of the board. I'm proud that I got the opportunity to be part of such an amazing environment. And then hopefully one day I'll be able to return. Won't see the end of me. I have kids in the district, so I'll be here. I'll be in and out and things like that. But I do appreciate the opportunity and the confidence of my fellow board members, the community, and the district. And I wish you guys the best of luck. And I know that you're in good hands.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next item is recognition of American Education Week. Craig?
I don't have the write-up in front of me. You have that?
I don't.
There it is on your screen.
Oh, do you want me to read it? Yeah. Okay, American Education Week. This is a proclamation. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and success to a productive future. And whereas education employees, be they substitute educators, custodians, teachers, bus drivers, or librarians, or even administrators, I guess, work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas schools are community linchpins, bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders, and elected officials in a common enterprise. Now, therefore, I, Steve Core, serving as chairman of the Sweetwater County School District Number 2 Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim November 16th to the 20th as the 99th annual observance of American Education Week. Thanks. Next is recognition of all state cross-country runners. Mr. Levitt. Craig, are you here? Welcome.
So I'd like to recognize the girls team. At the beginning of the season, we had Ms. Madison Yoke here coming back, and we had an entirely new girls team. All of our girls last year graduated, and this was the biggest team we've had since probably the 80s. We got into the double digits, so we increased our size, and we had 10 girls that had never ran cross country running for us. So they worked hard this season, and they did very well. We had 2 girls that were all conference, Maddie and Maddie. So Madison Murdoch and Madison Yoke. They were 7th at regionals, Madison Yoke was, and Madison Murdoch was 8th at regionals, and they ran a time of 21:03 and a time of 21:16. So they finished right next to each other. And then at state the next week, it was a little tougher course. Madison Yoke came in 17th at 21:30, and Madison Murdoch came in 16th at 21:27. So I'd just like to let you guys know that these guys did an excellent job this year. They worked very hard. Even over the break when we had our little quarantine, they came back and ran very strong that next week. So I was very proud of them. They worked very hard on their own. As you guys might know, they were quarantined, so they had to go run out in the desert and do some things that haven't had to do before, but they did very well, and they maintained their fitness and just came back and ran awesome at regionals and state. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Craig. Craig. Turn around and draw my name, Mr. Behringer. Draw Karina.
That'd be good. Leanne, I'm going to have to put my glasses on. Leanne Heiser, Harrison.
All right. All right, good. Connecting with you, Mr. Lake. Okay, next item is approval of the agenda. I have no changes proposed. If you would like to approve that, I need a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Robin, second by Brenda to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything on the consent agenda anybody wants to discuss? If not, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Rochelle, second by Robin to approve the consent agenda items. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. As a reminder, the virtual WSBA conference is coming up next week.
I
And-
would like to ask if there's any board member that wants to sit in with the delegate assembly that's on Wednesday from 1 to 5. We count as 2, so it's always nice to have somebody that's also on the board.
I can
do
do
it.
that.
Okay,
Can you too?
I can too, either one.
Does it matter how many of us are on there?
no, we can all do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so Mary, can you make sure that you get these 2 registered?
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Nothing under personnel, curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Presentation on the project Lead the Way at Lincoln Middle School. Mr. Mickelson and Kathy Stanton, welcome.
Chairman Core, Superintendent Behringer, and members of the board. I know last time I was giving Mike a hard time about the 5-minute time limit here on the speaking. So I promise you my time will be less than 5 minutes. But I've included my team here, so we might take a little bit longer. But we're really excited about Project Lead the Way and what it's doing here at Lincoln. And we're going to introduce you to a couple of our new teachers that are teaching Project Lead the Way and a couple of the programs that we have. And then Ms. Stanton's going to finish it up with some things that we've had working before. So let's turn it over to Mr. Lamb.
All right. So I'm the newest member of the Project Lead the Way team at Lincoln. Yeah. So I just started teaching a class called Flight in Space. And I was teaching Tech CAD, and I wanted to kind of expand on that and get the kids critically thinking. I saw how Kathy Stanton was engaging students, and I was like, this is an awesome program. I want to get involved as much as possible. And so if you pull up the next slide, I believe, or right here. Oh, sorry, I didn't know this was here. There you go. So I teach Flight in Space, and the students start learning about flying and airplanes, and they do it by building paper airplanes. But this teaches them all kinds of science, like Newton's laws of physics. They learn about the design process. And it's extremely engaging and challenging. And so they start off building something very simple. And then my kids right away started asking if they could use some of the materials in the tech lab. They used a wire cutter to design their own styrofoam paper airplane and just all kinds of different things. And then ultimately they end up having to build a paper airplane that flies 6 meters and lands specifically on a target. And then they have to create a presentation and try and sell that to the military. And so I'm bringing in some friends that I've had that have served in the military to have the kids present to. And so they've been super engaged by that. They, like all week, they just have been practicing their presentation, making sure everything's going perfectly. The comments out of the class, if you look in the picture, those are some difficult students, some really good students as well. And they're just all engaged. They just dive right in every day. They rush to my classroom. They're there before the bell rings. I mentioned today my attendance. Since I started teaching the Project Lead the Way course, my attendance has been like 100%. I had one girl who's been gone for like a dentist appointment, and she came racing in just a little bit late because she wanted to be there. And it's awesome to see how the kids work together and challenge each other. So there's a couple different, the video, it says it's request access. That might be my bad. But there's a couple different designs, but my favorite one is the one at the end. And what happened is I had a group of very, very intelligent students, kids that I've had since they were in first grade. And, you know, it's a simple task, build a paper airplane and then get it to fly and land on a target. but it seems simpler than it actually is. And the physics behind it and the things that they have to consider are really challenging. And these kids, like one of them I had in first grade, and when I had him as a first grader, he completed all the way through third grade math. Like he just was a very intelligent kid. And by the end of it, he just grabbed his paper airplane and just rolled it into a ball in frustration. And as a teacher, it's like, yes, like we're challenging kids that aren't being challenged. And to see them work together every day and the way they're thinking outside the box, and they're asking about magnets and different forces and things that they normally wouldn't have been asking in a science classroom. And it's also contributing to some positive benefits in their regular science class. And their teachers have came to me and they're like, man, these kids really know Newton's laws. And I'm like, paper airplanes help them. And so the second part of it is they have to start learning about space. And so they study astronauts and learn from different astronauts. They have to design an astronaut workout. They have to create an astronaut diet. And so they're learning all the different science that's required to do that. And then the final part is they put everything that they've learned together and they plan a trip to Mars. And they have to plan the space shuttle that they're going to travel in. They have to plan how they're going to land, where they're going to land. They have to study the surface of Mars through different images and predict where's the safest place to land, where's the least safe place to land. They have to design a Mars rover, and these are pictures. These aren't pictures of my class yet. We haven't got that far because this is my first semester teaching it. But they have to design a Mars rover. How are they going to travel in space? And it really gets them thinking outside the box. The kids absolutely love it. Here's a video, if I can get this to play. Maybe. Yeah.
I like Flight in Space because it relates back to my family. My great grandfather worked for NASA for when they were shooting rockets up into space, and my grandfather, he builds remote control planes. I also like Flight in Space because building the rockets or building the planes and stuff is really fun to me.
Yeah. There's just one kid, I kind of caught him. It looks like a hostage video because I just grabbed him and said, hey, tell me what you like about this. And then held the phone in front of his face. But like all the kids talk about it every day, how much they love it. I have a kid that I've had several times in class, kind of a more difficult student today. Just tell me how much he absolutely loves this class now. And that he likes to come every day and build things, and he likes how hard it is and how challenging it is. And it really is preparing them for college and careers. And the on-task student engagement, the kids, like as a teacher, it's what you dream of. You walk into a classroom, you give them a challenge, and then they start doing it on their own. And when they come up with challenges and obstacles, they come and say, what do I do here? And you say, well, what do you think? Like, what would you do? What do you want to do? And it like gets them using their creative thought and just thinking outside the box. And it's one of the coolest programs. It's something I dream of as a teacher, something I've always wanted to teach. And so that's my class, Flight in Space.
I like Flight in Space because it.
All right. My name is Karen Kleski, and I teach 2 Project Lead the Way courses this year. The first one is Medical Detectives, and that's also a new course this year. And the very first slide there you can see is an animation. So Medical Detectives not only helps the kids dive into medical mysteries, but it also compares computer science with it. So they actually had to learn how to make animations as well as learn about neurons and the parts of the brain. So that's kind of just an introduction. And this class is for 7th and 8th graders. So it ties really well with the science standards that they're learning in 7th grade and in 8th grade as well. So it's kind of a good comparison with both curriculums. And you can see on this one, they are practicing taking vital signs. So that real world application, it's not just, okay, let's learn about being a doctor today, a nurse. It's specific hands-on techniques and skills that they'll use, which a lot of my students have actually told me, like, I really want to be an x-ray technician, or I really want to be an ER nurse. So they're already thinking about that. And that's what's wonderful about my course is that I actually get to bring those skills to them at the middle school level and really have them interact and understand how to use those. Some of the other things they get to look at are actually diagnostic imaging. And so they actually study brain scans, CT scans as part of putting together each medical mystery. This is just another slide to kind of show there's a lot of science looking at sampling, positive and negative controls, and everything is working around different case studies. And so they learn small parts one bit at a time to be able to solve each medical case. And then this one is probably the biggest thing that the kids are most excited about. And the kids that are coming next semester, I hung some pictures in the hallway and they're like, oh man, I cannot wait to do the sheep brain dissections. So a lot of times they don't get to do dissections until high school or even college. This course allows them to really get that hands-on exposure to what it's like to actually have to do a medical dissection. So you can see this one, they had to map the brain first. They learned about safety equipment, so PPE, which was perfect timing with our COVID, talking about the importance of why we need it in hospitals and medical facilities. And then they had to learn all the parts and functions of the brain and then actually dissect it. And one of the medical mysteries was actually cutting brains open that had tumors inside. So they got to learn even what the difference looks like. So it's pretty neat exploration. I've got 3 students here that were really excited to talk about it. And then, like Justin said, they were like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. So they're kind of talking fast through them, but let's see here. Ooh. If I can get mine too. Maybe it's all over the place. There it goes. Maybe you can help me out. Oh, there it goes. Okay, I was good.
In the medical field, and medical detectives preps you for what you would see in the medical field, and also gives you day-to-day things like how to take pulse or respiratory rates, and I really enjoy it.
Because it has interesting scenarios and it puts together lessons for teachers to help them. And I've done multiple Project Lead the Way courses, such as robotics and project, something like that. And then I like medical detectives because it has really cool lessons, and I've done things in this class that I will never forget. And I really like dissecting brains and learning how to type blood and how blood samples work. I probably will never forget any of that stuff.
Medical detectives because when I grow up, I want to be a doctor, and medical detectives gives me good background information so I can succeed.
So that's just a little bit of examples. Those are 7th and 8th graders up there. And so, I mean, just the enthusiasm when they come in, just like Justin said, when I have it set up as a lab day when we were doing blood typing, or even before we did a toxin lab, the kids come in and they see on the board to put on their PPE. And I mean, it's like within seconds. They're not standing in the hallway still talking with their friends. They're in and they're like, let's go, let's get everything out and on. And just to have that excitement. And then we've been really fortunate. I've had Mrs. Fisher, our school nurse, come in. And so she's actually acted as our patient a couple of times. I've had other staff members come in. So the kids actually have learned like bedside manner and how to ask medical questioning to be able to help solve cases. And just having that nurse interaction where they can learn from someone actually in that field has been really beneficial. And the kids have enjoyed seeing it. They're like, is she coming back today for this lab too? And so it's been really a really neat experience to see a new class unfold and just the excitement they have for that. Ooh,
medical detectives because I want to go in the medical field, and medical detectives prep. Medical detectives because when I grow up, I want to be a doctor, and medical detectives gives me good background.
Because it has interesting scenarios and it puts together. Because it has interesting.
There we go. Okay. This is the other course. We aren't teaching it this year because we kind of loop them and how we're introducing them to be able to bracket, and we'll talk later about the pathways. But this is one of the courses that we taught to 6th graders. And this is Computer Science for Innovators and Makers. We call it CSIM. And this one, students are actually learning how to build circuits using a tiny microprocessor. And so they're learning both computer programming, but they're also using hardware design. So this is an example of the user interface. It's called a microbit. And the kids actually learn how to write all of the code, either in block-based or you can do JavaScript code. And what the really nice thing is about CSIM is it focuses on both sides. So students actually act as a navigator and a driver. So the student that is driving is actually doing all the code while one person kind of watches and helps check. And they also will do all the coding and then they switch every few minutes. So it's just that constant collaboration, working as teams, understanding how to work together and problem solve. Also during this class, they're working on flowcharts and algorithmic thinking. So a lot of the math logistics and the way that they are working through variables and being able to solve the code problems happens in CSIM. And then we'll switch over to the end.
So I'm sure you remember design and modeling from a few years ago. How are those puzzles?
Yeah.
They're finished, right?
Right.
You haven't thrown them away or out the window. It's not what I've heard. So with design and modeling, students really use the design process. And we kind of use this as our intro course with sixth graders. All sixth graders are required to take this class. It's a good introduction for students coming from the elementaries who up until this year haven't all had Project Lead the Way classes. So I'm really looking forward to this next year with all 4 elementaries bringing us Project Lead the Way kiddos. So they've had that introduction. However, you did what to this to make it advance? Oh, the arrow? Yeah. So students really learn some technical sketching skills and the importance of accuracy and precision. And with sixth graders, that can be kind of a lot sometimes. And the first thing that they do, this is actually, design and modeling was updated over the summer. This is called the skimmer. And they've had to build this following a model or a diagram, I guess, and build it accurately and precisely to get it to travel the furthest using this launcher that we've built. And they learn very quickly that accuracy and precision really matter, because if they're not as accurate and precise as they should be, it doesn't really go very far. So that's been a fun one. They also use different design tools like dial calipers, which is a totally new measurement system that takes a little bit for them to learn, but it's a nice tool for them. They get into then, of course, building their wood puzzle cubes. And then after that, they go into an online CAD software. It's kind of a basic CAD software, but it can become pretty complicated the further they get into it. And they're very excited about that. We actually just started that today, and they are like, they're just thrilled because we're going to print designs that they make, and they're going to take that home, and they just can't even wait to see some of that manufacturing process. And then I also teach robotics, automation and robotics, and Project Lead the Way, but they tend to put things in mouthfuls. So robotics. And with robotics, students are learning about different types of gears, their gear ratio. So some of the gears that they have to build those and learn about how those work, how they can change the direction of the motion, how they can increase torque and speed, to all leading up to building a car. Right now they're building a zombie apocalypse car to kind of pull them in a little bit, where they have to avoid the zombies, and they've got actual zombies. If you come over at some point, they're in the hallway with the zombies and trying to hit the buttons with the zombies. And but some thoughts on that from one of my students.
It's really hard to actually do the code and understand what you're doing half the time. But when your project actually works, it's really fun, because it moves and it's cool.
Might be a politician. So the coding that he's talking about, they're all doing text-based coding with a language called Robot C. And that's a language specific for Project Lead the Way, based on, I believe, C++. But up to now, they've done block-based programming with CSIM, like you saw. And then other websites, block-based programming is a very typical thing that you see in schools. And so this text-based programming language is kind of a big curve for them. And the accuracy and precision, again, with the syntax and the spelling and the correct program code that they put in there it's huge, and they get so frustrated with it, and they tend to throw things or want to throw things, and just learning the iteration and that persistence And some of those skills that sometimes in classrooms we don't always have to use. It's really fun to see the kids who need to be challenged, and they're very challenged. And sometimes they love it, and sometimes they absolutely hate it, which means I love it because I'm doing a job. So
It's really hard to actually do the code and understand what.
all right, and so the pathways, Matt's going to get into the pathways here for Project Lead the Way. So
Okay, as you can see up here, there's a few different pathways. So there's Project Lead the Way Launch, which is really for elementary. And we wanted to share with you what the elementaries are doing right now. K1 is representing two of these. They're in computer science and engineering. And then 2, 3, they're doing the second and third levels of those in grids and games and material science and properties of matter. And then the 4th and 5th grade are doing infection modeling and simulation and energy conversion. So then it transfers over to us, and we try to cover every pathway that we could going through to give kids all the opportunities in each area, and we're slowly filling those in. So you'll see under Project Lead the Way Gateway, computer science, we're going to try to add app creators next year, and then one more under the engineering field. So here's what we found. We found a lot of kids that are going through our system want to go to be engineers. And so we asked them, well, what does an engineer do? I don't know. My dad's an engineer. Okay. Have you taken any engineering courses? No. Well, how do you know you want to be an engineer? Well, that's what my dad does. Okay, let's get into it. Let's see if you really like this and enjoy it. So we're trying to give them these pathways to go through. And so over on, you can see on the right side there's the programs for the 9th and 12th grade. So we've met with the high school folks. We've talked to them a little bit about what some courses would lead into that and where we're going next. I tried to help identify some teachers to start bringing this up through that process as well. So I think we've got it pretty well rounded. We've got just about every area covered coming through up into that point. Now it's time to expand up to the next level, but I think there's some really good things going. I think you can tell with the energy and excitement these guys bring to it every day, leads to it too, but the kids just really buy into it and they really enjoy it. So we're looking forward to updating our labs that we have, our tech labs and those kind of things with more Project Lead the Way classes. It's the wave of the future and some things that we just really need to continue to do. So thank you for your support in that. And if you guys have any other questions, you probably better ask them because I'm not dissecting anything.
Any questions from the board?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead, Rochelle.
I just want to say, I think Project Lead the Way is like something that I get super excited about because I see how excited my kids get about it. And I know you talked about gearing up to do it to the high school, but is there a time frame that it's going to be in the high school so that hopefully my kids can continue doing what they're doing now as they go forward? Do you know, or when can we expect that in the high school?
You know, what's really great about Project Lead the Way is they do all the training for us. And so the curriculum and everything there, and it's a little bit of a money issue. It's a cost issue up front. But once they do that, the teachers go out and get trained. It usually takes about a week, and then they have great support. I think what these guys can say too, and a great network that can do it. So it's something that we could transition to over the summer. And I'm not sure, I mean, I know they've identified and looked at some things. I'm just not positive of the plans for the high school yet, but I know it's in the works.
Okay. And could Kathy just tell everyone else here about the school that uses Toyota with Project Lead the Way, just to give a little about the impact it could have at the high school level?
A couple years ago, we went to the Project Lead the Way Summit. Matt, Karen, there was a team of us. And we were listening to some presentations, of course, and somebody I think it was a CEO, was presenting on some of their partnerships that they have with corporations. And they're based in Indiana, so they kind of have that Midwest connection, of course, too. But one of their Project Lead the Way districts is in a city with Toyota. So, you know, big manufacturing industry, obviously there, automotive stuff, whatever. As students go through school with Project Lead the Way in this district, and they get into high school, they can choose to take courses out of the Project Lead the Way pathways. Toyota then has partnered with this district, and they have set up an internship program. They will only accept interns from this Project Lead the Way high school who have taken Project Lead the Way courses, because they know that students coming out of those courses are coming out with collaboration skills. They're coming out with problem solving skills. They're coming out with, I mean, a lot of those soft skills that we know a lot of industries are crying for. They're coming out of Project Lead the Way schools with those skills in place, and they know this. So Toyota sets up internships for students, and I think it's in their senior year where they can then start working with Toyota, and then on graduation, they go to work for Toyota on, I don't know that you call it an internship program, but maybe, where they're getting on-site training in classroom, but then they're working on the floor at the plant a couple days a week too. And so I think it's pretty powerful to know that a huge corporation like Toyota, who has, you know, all kinds of funds to to put into whatever programs they want to. They say, you know what, we believe in this program and we believe in what the students come out with and the skills that they have, and we're going to go ahead and really support that and help these kids on graduation. And maybe these kids are on a college track to begin with, maybe they're not, but they don't necessarily have to be, because they can go and work there and they've got the skills they need. So thank you. Yeah.
I would add that, and it's going to be nice to have David on our board because he works in the Trona patch, but boy, we have manufacturing engineers just right out the door here. And it would be neat to maybe present to them as four minds, and even Church and Dwight. And maybe we can add some of that element to the high school engineering side of things. I think it's worth a discussion with the Trona minds. Any other questions?
I'd just like to thank Kathy. I am forever in debt for you for those blocks. They drove my husband absolutely crazy. And as a science guy, oh my God, it's not pretty when you see that happen.
Well, that means a lot also with his construction background, so thank you. But I didn't make it. The student made that a couple years ago, you know. That's the best part. Like, that wasn't me. Like Justin said, they walk in the room and they want to get to work and they want to do it with those puzzles, especially. They are running. They're not stumbling in late. They're running to get in and get them done. So
teachers
but thank
dread
you.
when they start building those puzzles.
Oh, they do.
Because then they bring them into your classroom and like, here, solve this. And it's like, for the next 5 weeks, you're trying to figure it out.
It made my year. It was just awesome.
All right. Any other comments? I would just say that let's not let money stop this. Let's figure out a way to get it done. There's grants. Like I said, we can visit with the Trona mines. I agree. Let's get this into the high school as soon as we can.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Nice job. Next up on our agenda is Dr. Demaray. He's here to talk about special services. Alan, welcome.
All right, thank you, Chairman Core, Superintendent Behringer, and members of the board. Just as the other departments have done kind of over the last couple months, we'll give you a quick update as to how things are going in your special education department. So you may recall a couple years ago, we collaborated with Black Hills Special Services Cooperative out of South Dakota. They came in and spent quite some time with our staff and our administration, taking a deep look at what are some root cause analysis as to why our data looks the way it does, why some of our environments are the way they are in terms of how much time our students are spending in different environments, and then really giving us a platform for organizing some goals to address some of those benchmarks and trying to improve our department. And so after doing all of those interviews and observations and walkthroughs and really analyzing that data from a longitudinal look in terms of multi-years worth of YTOP data and all the way back to prior to YTOP and looking at how our kids are performing, we've been able to kind of put together some goals at each building, but as well as our district. And so today, we just wanted to kind of cover some of those goals and how we're doing with some of those. The first one is obviously, we believe that kids need to be in the general education classroom as much as possible. All of our students in the district are general education kids first. And then from there, we add on supports to meet their appropriate needs. So this was something that in our data, we found that for quite some time, our kids were not spending as much time as they needed to in front of those core content teachers. And this resulted in sometimes not being able to have kids master standards because they just weren't exposed to them. So we had to kind of reshape some of that ideal and work with some of our staff for what does that look like. And I know our administrators worked extremely hard at scheduling and making sure that their school schedules matched how we can get folks to work together and support those kids in those settings. So our first goal was to really reduce the traditional pull-out setting that many folks are familiar with, of going down the hallway, going to that teacher's class. Nobody really knows what's happening down there, but we hope that they're getting the services they need, and then they come back to our class later on and nobody ever really talks about it. Well, that's really changed now, and we'll share some data about what that looks like. Second is really the second and third are really some things we're really excited about, and that is just really increasing our collaboration between the general ed staff and the special ed staff, and breaking down that that wall that seems to have been there for many years of that silo effect of, you know, we do this over here and they do this over there, and we don't ever really have a chance to sit down at the same table. And so that's been something also that through the PLC process, we've been able to really address, and we'll talk about some of those items. Instructional paraprofessionals, we know that they can be some of the backbone of our support system for our kids. We've got a lot of them in our district. They're crucial to many of our programs. And so we wanted to make sure that we shifted their use from the true kind of classroom management of just kind of walking around the class, making sure that all students are engaged in the instruction, to, you know, using them as a co-teacher or support a teacher and becoming an instructional tool versus more of a behavior management tool. And so our staff has really been working hard at that. And lastly, as always, we've got to continue to balance the compliance requirements from the federal law and the Wyoming state law, as well as making sure we're meeting student needs. So in terms of the least restrictive environment and getting kids into the classroom, this is from last year to this year. Currently, we have 78% of our students with disabilities that are spending 80% of their time in the general ed classroom. So that's telling you that 8 out of 10 kids are in front of those classroom teachers at all grade levels, and that really goes out to our principals and our staff and our general ed teachers for looking at how to, different ways for differentiating, as well as that partnership between the special education department and the general ed staff. So we're really excited about that. And this should directly correlate to then students doing better on their outcomes for the YTOP. This is the number of students that are in pull-out classes, meaning 40% to 80% of their day. This is outside of the special programs that we have in our district. You can see we've reduced that by almost half, so that's exciting as well. And then lastly, this would be our students that are in special programs. We wouldn't expect a big change in this, and that those kids have unique needs that are going to be more challenging to meet in the general ed classroom. This would be our total care classrooms, life skills classrooms, our best classrooms at Washington and Lincoln. So those kids are going to take a little bit more time, most likely, to be able to get opportunities to get out of those programs into the general ed class. They get opportunities throughout the day, but in terms of spending at least almost half of your day, it becomes a little bit more challenging. So really good data there in terms of how much time our kids are spending in the classroom in front of those content specialists. In terms of increasing collaboration, these are some efforts that I know Mike talked to you and Mr. Imoni talked to you last month about at the high school. It's also happening at all of our schools. And this is where folks are able to collaborate in PLCs and come up with a plan for how we're going to deliver instruction. These are the two primary co-teaching or supported teaching models that we use. One teach, one assist is your kind of traditional one, where one teacher is presenting the content. So maybe it's that math teacher providing the math instruction, and the other teacher is assisting the kids in ensuring that they're understanding the content. Alternative teaching is something we're really trying to push in a lot more of our classrooms with our paraprofessionals, as well as some of our special education staff, and that is large group instruction, taking a small group, making sure those kids get additional repetitions or practice. And sometimes it might be having that content specialist taking the small group and having our paraprofessional taking the other students who have mastered that content and do an independent practice, but having that person who knows the content teaching those kids and reteaching them so that we can really approach all students in that classroom. Really proud of, we do a lot of walkthroughs, and our principals do a lot of walkthroughs, and I have the opportunity to do some with them, and it's fun to see this really come to fruition in our district. This is something we've been working on for many years. I can tell you that this year, more so than last year more so than the year before, and we just continue to grow, which is providing opportunities for our kids to attend that classroom. And again, in that partnership with a special education staff, what we're doing is we're not just impacting our special education students, but having that staff in the classroom, we're making that entire tier 1 per se, or general ed class stronger. That's not easy. That's why it takes some time. Some of the challenges that you'll find is you have to find the right team. You can't just pick two people and say all of a sudden that you're going to teach together. So sometimes it takes a little bit of adjustment and the scheduling and things to make sure that we find the right people that complement one another. It does provide for some shared content expertise. I know today we were in a math class at the high school where you have a special education teacher who's also highly qualified in math teaching next to a math content specialist. What a great opportunities for those kids to get that much instruction. Common training and professional development. So we want to make sure that when our staff goes to PLC training, that everyone gets to go to PLC training. That when we're working on common, like say, preparing your lesson plans and effective lesson planning, we want to make sure that those folks are doing it together so that as they go out and teach together, then they have been exposed to that curriculum. Finding the time is probably the hardest challenge, right? And anything, usually one of the biggest hurdles for many of our initiatives is finding time. And that's been something that our administrators have had to come up with in managing their schedules for beginning of the year and how they're going to get all their specials in place and when's the reading going to be taught, recess, all of those components. But how do we line up some of our classrooms so that those folks have opportunities to collaborate? For special education teachers at the elementary, it gets a little tricky. They're teaching multiple grade levels, so they may not be able to go to every PLC for that grade level, but if we can get them to go in one or two a week and just kind of have an idea, hey, when I come in this week, here's our learning targets for the week. Here's our success criteria each day, so I know when my kids have mastered that. I know Mr. Imoni really harped on that last month. That's something that we're expecting all of our teachers. Today, Mr. Lake and I met with one of our life skills teachers, and we said, look, it's the same thing in a life skills class. I should be able to know when I watch a lesson what your learning criteria is and how do we know when those kids have mastered that. So I think that's been a nice wave across the district of aligning all of our initiatives. So a couple years ago, we had our instructional framework that's still in place. Our curriculum department's really working hard to provide some of that, making sure that all of our classrooms are providing that guaranteed curriculum. Well, this falls right in line with it. I think it aligns our efforts and everyone's speaking the same language. And the last part is really making sure that even if our students, it's one thing to just say, well, you're now going to go in a general ed classroom, but we want to make sure that they're getting that individualized service that they're entitled to through their IEP. So that's available as well in some of our classes. All right, lastly, it's really finding that balance in between compliance and making sure students' needs are met. In my time as a director, I can tell you that with visiting with colleagues, if you get this balance off kilter, you're probably gonna find yourself in a pretty challenging situation. Compliance is important, but it can't ever get ahead of what our students are receiving for services, as well as vice versa. You have compliance requirements. The last thing you want is for the State Department to feel the need to come in and monitor all of those things. So making sure that your files are in good order, making sure that students are getting what they need is a pretty important balance. This is our district report card. Some of you may have received this. The way that the state does, this is their monitoring tool. So every district receives this every year. It does have a 2-year delay from your data, and that the reason is because they have to analyze all of your proficiency scores, as well as all of your state reports and so forth. As you can see, our district score is the furthest on the right as you're looking at it. And we are better than our cohort, which would be all the large district. In this formula, there's 12 large districts. We're considered one of those. We're better than the state in almost every, but I think 3 categories. The state targets are a little bit sometimes difficult to reach, and I think some of that is due to still some No Child Left Behind regulations that were in place. And then obviously the possible scores be what would be going after. The state then determines a score, and from that score, they tell you if you've met requirements, if you need assistance, and this is how they know if they need to come in and do a comprehensive review of your district. Don't quote me, but I believe there was only 13 districts in the state last year that met requirements. This breaks it down into the first top indicators being all performance. So how are our students doing? Obviously, our graduation rate's always been wonderful in Green River. Dropout rate's great. Participation is not a concern as we look down our proficiency rates. You know, a lot of people would say, well, you only have 25% of your kids with disabilities that are proficient. I think as I've shared with a lot of our staff, that tells us we probably have the right kids in special education if they're not proficient. That's the support they need. The environments are the other two that we've really worked on and to trying to address. So those were down on this report card this year. That'll probably obviously be significantly higher. And one that we're pretty proud of is our parent survey. So parents are all provided a survey to fill out regarding their satisfaction towards the services their kids get. We're nearing 90% satisfaction, which is significantly higher than the target as well as some of our other colleagues. Post-secondary outcomes are phone calls we have to make a year after kids have graduated, kids that had disabilities, and to see if they're either enrolled in a college or if they're in a full-time job. Sometimes our students aren't quite sure what they want to do, so sometimes we get penalized for some of their performance. But overall, I would say that close to 7 out of the 10 kids that graduate go on and either are employed or in college. I think is success to that high school and the middle school and all those programs that go along. The next indicators are primarily just compliance. So are we making sure that we're filling out all of our paperwork, timely evaluations, making sure that those things are all done per all the IDA guidelines. So overall, I can't tell you how proud we are as a department of just our teachers, our paraprofessionals, counselors, administrators. It takes a lot of work, not just one person sitting up here saying that they can get it done. And it goes all the way to making sure that when our kids are met by the bus driver, that those folks have the skills too to transport those kids appropriately. Making sure that some of our food service folks are providing our care for some of our kids that are in the total care program. I think, again, it takes that whole district approach, and we just want to say thanks to all those folks as well. Any questions?
Questions?
Thank you.
I didn't think I'd ever see a report card that looked kind of like mine when I was in school, but that's pretty good.
The 25%?
Meets.
Oh, meets.
No, thanks, Alan. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Alan.
Very nice. Next item on the agenda is bid request items. Consider approval to go out for an RFP for the new line interactive units. JR, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Core, Superintendent Behringer, members of the board. Technology is asking approval to go out to RFP for 58 new line displays. They are large multi-touch units that are on carts. They're replacing the older projector touch style that the smart boards are based on. So this is part of a 3-year replacement plan, and these will be going to Monroe Elementary and the math science wing at the high school. And we're very excited about these because it's going to give the teachers a lot more flexibility with where it's located in the room. It runs off of the wireless, and it'll just give them a lot more opportunities to have interaction with the students in the classroom.
Okay, I need a motion to do an RFP for 58 new line multi-touch displays not to exceed $160,000.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Rochelle, second by Brenda. Any questions, comments?
Please, if I get it right, they're just a little under $3,000 a piece.
Yeah, they're about 2,600
What's
is
their warranty?
ballpark. So we're going for a 7-year warranty on these.
Pinned down or?
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, JR.
Thank you.
Next item is something we probably should have done at the end of the meeting. Consider approval of the audited financial statements for 2019 and 2020. And we're going to start with Chris or Mike? Mike? Okay, Mike, welcome back.
Thank
I
you.
actually read this, most of it.
Did you fall asleep?
No, but I do have some questions.
Perfect.
So,
Chairman Core, Superintendent Behringer, members of the board, thank you for having me today. My name is Mike Burton. I am representing DeCorian Company. We're the independent auditors that performed your audit for the fiscal year end June 30 to 2020. So over the years, we've been trying to decide how we want to do board presentations, things like that. We've talked about doing PowerPoints, but we decided against it. And what we're trying to do a little bit more this year is go through the financials and point out the areas that the board should be looking at from a year-to-year standpoint, possibly comparing from last year and things like that. So I'm going to go through. If you have any questions, or I guess when you have questions, please feel free to stop me at any time. I really get tired of hearing my own voice, so I like questions. We're going to go to page 1. This is the report of independent auditor. The biggest thing on this is management's responsibility for the financial statements. Towards the middle there, it talks that management is responsible for these financial statements. Although I prepare them, they go to management, who does a very thorough review. Chris and Corinne probably review it as thoroughly or more thoroughly than everyone that we audit. So I believe that the product that you guys receive is very good. And that's kind of the thing there that we wanted to point out. Page 4 is the start of management's discussion and analysis. And this is prepared by management. And the things here, what this does is it provides an overview of the district's financial activities. It's a little bit more narrative. These are items that Chris goes through and deems important to be discussed and things of that sort. So the big items here that are important are the financial highlights. For example, on the first one, talks about the strong position of the school district, talks about the new special reserve fund, talks about the restricting of the impact aid, things of that sort. Page 7. This is a condensed statement of net position, and I'm going to take a quick moment here. I won't go too far into accounting. School districts operate on a cash basis. What that means is when you receive money, you record a revenue. And when you pay a bill, you record an expense. Financial statements have to be prepared on the accrual basis. So when someone owes you money, you record a revenue. And when you receive goods, you record an expense. So there's a little bit of a time difference there, more or less. And that's why the numbers that are on the financial statements may differ from what Chris provides, because you're doing it on a cash basis, which is required by the state. But then for the financial audit, it's what's called the accrual basis. So that's why there's the differing numbers that you might notice. So this table talks about, it's more kind of the balance sheet. The items here to look at would be total assets, total liabilities, and total net position. For governmental activities, I'm going to look down at the very bottom, total net position. It actually increased about $100,000. That's really good and very rare for school districts to have an increase in that position. The other item on business type activities, which would be your lunch fund, that increased to $275,000 net position. So page 8, same idea for accrual basis, but this is going to be the revenues, expenses, and things like that. Items here to be looking at are total revenues between the governmental and the business type. You'll notice that like on business type, total revenue increased by about $300,000. That was due to grants and things that occurred in this year that haven't occurred in any other year. Total expenses, governmental activities actually had a decrease in expenses. However, most of that is due to a net pension liability. And then the fourth to last item there is transfers. That's another item to look at in the future. In the business type activities, you'll be able to see how much you're having to transfer to help the lunch fund. No school district, no lunch fund can run by itself, and this gives you an idea of how much help you're trying to give every year. Page 10. These are another 2 good tables to look at going forward. Table 5 is your net capital assets. These are your buildings, construction in progress, things like that. Gives you an idea that you had $4 million in projects that were still ongoing at June 30th. And then table 6 is your long-term debt. gives you an idea of what's upcoming in bonds and things of that sort. Page 11, and this is the last page for the MD&A. These are current financial issues and concerns. And once again, these are issues and concerns that management believes are important enough to be in the discussion. For example, the first item there talks about the financial focus of the school district becoming the delivery of an adaptive learning plan due to COVID-19. The fifth bullet talks about the Sweetwater County's assessed valuation decreased by 5%. So that might have an impact going forward. The sixth bullet point talks about that the district's valuation actually increased 2.77%. Although management goes on to say that the impacts of COVID-19 is expected to be negative going forward. So these are items that that management believes are important. And so I would recommend going through and reading those if you don't find a lot of time to go through other items. Pages 15 and 17 are essentially what we've already discussed, but they're a little bit more similar to a cash basis. So those don't show up comparative. You can't look year to year without pulling out last year's financials, but it's not a bad thing to do if you really want to. The one item I will talk about on page 17, and this is the item I would recommend looking at every year. It's the third item from the bottom. This is the net change in fund balance. I guess you can kind of think of it as net income for the year. Your general fund increased, your major maintenance fund decreased, obviously due to the LMS projects. And so a thing to look there is if you don't see an increase, maybe ask why. And Chris should have a pretty easy explanation as to what happened during the year to change that. We're actually going to go to page 34 now. This is going to be in the notes to the financial statements. The biggest thing here that can be important to the board is going to be the investments and looking at how your investments are separated via the WildStar and Wyoming Government Investment Fund. They do have a lot of differences in regards to their maturity days. WildStar has decreased from last year of 224 days to 183. So it's a pretty large decrease going down, which can be a good thing depending on how the market does. And then the WGIF increased to 2 days to 55 from 53 in last year. So it was pretty similar there. So it's just something to keep an eye out on where you want to keep those funds going forward. Page 37. Note 10, which is interfund transfers. This is something that I would recommend looking at every year, looking at which funds had to help other funds. And once again, this is an area that you can look for the annual subsidy to the food services fund and what is required for that. Page 50. This is a note on budgetary compliance. We're required to put it in. The important thing on this page is going to be the half part of the last sentence where it says there were no instances in which actual expenditures exceeded budgeted expenditures at the functional levels required by Wyoming statute. That's the important thing to look at. It means your budgets were in compliance with the state. Page 51. This is the Wyoming Retirement System's net pension liability. The second column is your portion of the liability. So out of the state, you guys are 1.26 or so % of the entire liability. The third column is your share of that liability, which is a little under $30 million. And then the important one to look at is going to be that last column. And that is the health of the pension plan, how well funded it is. In the current year, it shows 76.83% compared to last year's 69.17. The one item I'd like to mention there is I believe that that's pretty inflated due to deferreds moving through the liability. So although the liability is decreased, they are going to have a lot of expenses coming into that and increase the liability. So although it looks very healthy, I believe it's healthier than last year, but I believe that is an inflated number. So thought I'd mention that. The last page, which is going to be the most important, is page 62. This is the summary of audit results. So for the financial statements, which is the audit for the financial statements themselves, first item there, the report of independent auditor expressed an unmodified opinion on the basic financial statements. That's the best opinion that the district can receive. Second item is that we disclosed a significant deficiency in internal control. That deficiency is a lack of segregation of duties. We do believe, however, that although there is not a complete segregation of duties, you guys have done a very good job in mitigating that, but it is still considered a significant deficiency. Third item, it was not considered a material weakness. Fourth item on that is we disclosed no compliance findings material to the financial statements. On the federal awards, and this is the single audit that we're required to do when the school district spends more than $750,000 of federal money. The report of independent auditor expressed an unmodified opinion. So once again, the best opinion you can receive. There were no weaknesses for internal control over major programs, and the audit disclosed no compliance findings. And the major program that was up for audit this year was the child nutrition cluster. So congratulations to Leah and her staff for doing a good job on that. All in all, the audit went very, very well, as it usually does. Chris and Corinne have a very good understanding of cash basis as well as accrual basis accounting. There are some governmentals that I go to and I feel like I do more cleaning the books than I do auditing. It's not the case here. We don't believe there's anything that really needs to be brought to the attention of the board. There aren't any new standards or anything of that sort. All in all, it went very, very well. We appreciate working with Chris, Corinne, and all the other staff that take a lot of their time in helping us with this audit, since we ask for just about everything we seem to. We also did do additional testing on the payroll again this year, and everything went fine through that as well. So, questions?
Questions? I don't, but I do want to just highlight a couple of things. This is from Chris's management letter, and I think these are important to at least to announce to the public. It says here, it's important to note that the July 1, 2020 district evaluation increased 2.77%, which can be attributed to steady Trona tax revenue. The impacts of COVID-19 on Trona revenues is expected to be negative. Also says the financial strength of Sweetwater County School District Number 2, and this is what I'm really proud of, has remained steady and strong over the past year and is attributable to the relative wealth of the district and to the financial leadership provided by the Board of Trustees and administration. The goal of the trustees is to maintain the best salaries in the state for all employees. The current starting salary for a district teacher ranks 13th out of the 48 districts in the state. And Sweetwater County School District Number 2 has committed itself to financial excellence for many years. The district's financial planning, budgeting, and internal financial controls are well regarded. The district's strong financial position and sound fiscal management goals are keys to meet the foreseen challenges of the future, namely significant state mineral revenue declines and the potential negative impacts of the 2020 statutory funding model recalibration requirement. I think that those notes were important to at least say publicly. Again, thanks for coming tonight. I appreciate it. And again, Chris, awesome job. We appreciate what you do for this district. A lot of people don't know how important you are to this machine, and I say it all the time. I appreciate you. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is here the monthly budget report for fiscal year 2021, 2022. And Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Core, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Behringer. Are we going to motion to approve the audit?
Oh, okay. I need a motion to approve the audit as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Robin, second by Brenda. Any further discussion on improving our audit for the last fiscal year? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks for that
Yeah.
reminder.
Okay, so the monthly budget report, really, today I'm going to talk about just two things. And one of the first item is a letter that Chairman Core received from the Select Committee on School Finance Recalibration. And it is a request from school boards to talk to the calibration committee on what the effect would be on operations, the budget gap that exists in the school foundation program of $515 million. And this is for the 21-22 biennium. And so, of course, we've been thinking about this for a few months. And most of the school districts, we've had several sample letters, and they're pretty much answering the same thing. So we have composed with Superintendent Behringer's assistance and some of our fellow districts' help. We have composed a letter, and it's in front of you tonight to in our response to the recalibration committee.
And I presented this letter to you guys today. Did everybody get that in their email? Chris, I don't know if you want to go over some of the highlights or
I can do that.
in this case, the lowlights.
Yeah. So they do talk about a 16% budget gap in the school foundation program, which that is the portion that we get from the state to make us whole on our guarantee with our local revenues and the school foundation entitlement payment. That is what funds us for our school district guarantee. And that is where the shortfall lies. We did tell them that we have been trending declining enrollment for 6 consecutive years. So we are used to adjusting the budget to keep up with that. Of course, this year's enrollment decrease is greater than any of those 6 years, and partly due to the impacts of COVID-19. And we've already talked about this in previous meetings, that our ADM shortfall or our ADM adjustment would cost us about $865,000 or 2.2% of our guarantee. There is talk, and you've heard it, about the schools looking at a 10% cut. A 10% cut to School District 2 is about $3.9 million. We do not know if the ADM adjustment is going to be offset under that cut or not. That's yet to be seen. And that's the gist of all the school districts' answer to this letter is there's a lot of unknowns. And how do we answer this question today? And so we're doing the best we can to answer the question. We know we have to be prepared. And we also know that I've said it here, 81.6% of our budget is staff. And to cut that much money, you're going to have to look at the whole package. And unfortunately, 81% is staff, and you will have to look at all avenues to get to that level. Hopefully, this will be a scalable thing. As we learn more from the legislative session, we'll be able to scale that to what needs to be done with this upcoming budget year. I do say that we want to strive to least affect the students in the classroom at all costs. And I think every school district in Wyoming will want to do that. We want to continue to serve our mission and our vision to teach kids and make kids successful in Sweetwater too. We do offer, they asked for suggestions, and so we included some suggestions, and many of these suggestions are coming from other districts as well. We would like them to consider the recommendation to support a constitutional cost-based level of funding. We do not believe that the budget gap should dictate a new cost basis for funding education. Secondly, we would like them to maintain the block grant model and avoid dissecting the model in specific areas, putting new mandates and restrictions on the use of the block grant. To me, that takes the block grant concept away totally. Categorical components would severely limit our flexibility and ability to serve our students in the best way possible. And that is one thing that we need to advocate for. I think is most important, honestly. And then another recommendation, and we talked about this a little bit last year, if they were to consider temporary lifting of the maximum carryover for school district reserves in order that any cost-saving measures that we could implement early could be used to offset future years' potential loss in revenue. And of course, that would be temporary. They don't want to kick the can down the road too much longer. It has to be addressed, but that would be a stopgap measure, I believe. And then lastly, we tell them that we understand what they have to do. It's not going to be easy. I mean, they are elected officials too. They have constituents, and I don't envy their position, that's for sure. But we do support a multifaceted approach of revenue generation, use of rainy day resources to lessen some of the shortfall impacts, and thirdly, budget cuts. And that we will do our part to do what we can. But if they will consider these suggestions and help to secure the future of education funding in Wyoming.
Okay, I need a motion to authorize the chairman to sign this letter.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Rochelle, second by Karina. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So signed.
Great
Thanks,
job.
Chris.
Thank you. The second thing that I would like to just mention as the monthly budget update is that Superintendent Behringer and our central administration team, we will be forming the budget task force. And it's going to be a cross-section of all avenues of the district, including school board representation. So we would like 2 to 3 members, if you guys that would be interested in serving on our task force. Of course, central administration, school administration from the 3 levels that we serve, certified and support staff again, a couple from each level, and then some parent and student representation as well. And we plan our first meeting. The date has not been set, but our first meeting is going to be scheduled for mid-December. So just wanted to give you an update on that.
Would that be after the December board meeting or before?
After.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So we got a month to figure out
Yes.
who on the board. Okay.
And we'll keep you posted on that.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is consider approval of the new policy, IMG, policies and procedures on service animals in schools. This is 3rd reading. Dr. Foose, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Core, trustees, Superintendent Behringer. There's no change on this policy. I think we're functioning pretty well with our service animal at the high school, and thank you for consideration for 3rd reading.
Can I need a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ashley, second by Robin to approve the new policy, IMG, policies and procedures for service animals in schools. Any discussion? All those in favor?
How many service?
Oh,
animals
sorry.
you got in school? One?
Yeah.
Just a curiosity.
We have 1. Okay, good question. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Chairman Core, we've had a couple questions for service animals for other things, but not for service. And so this policy, 1 actual service animal.
Okay, thank you. Next, consider the approval of revision of policy ACA, sexual harassment, 3rd reading.
Foundational commitment to the district to prevent sexual harassment under Title IX, under the A policies. Thank you for your consideration for the 3rd reading. No changes.
Okay, need a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Rochelle, second by Robin to approve the revision to policy ACA, sexual harassment on 3rd reading. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, consider approval of the revision to policy JEB, entrance age, second reading.
Thank you, Chairman Core. We were able to do an extensive amount of research and answer a lot of questions through email. And so thank you for your consideration for the second reading. I think we got it mostly ironed out. No changes to the policy revision, however. Thank you.
Need a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Brenda, second by Karina, to approve the revision of policy JEB, entrance age, second reading. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is consider approval of the organizational chart. Thank you.
Karina, thank you for the years of service on the Super 8 committee. And I really enjoyed working with you and your insight. So thank you and best wishes moving forward.
Thank you. I enjoyed it as well. It's a great committee to be on. Learn a lot.
Okay, thank you. Next, consider approval of the organizational chart. Mr. Behringer.
Chairman Core, board members, we have the organizational chart that we have worked on this fall to present to you for your consideration of approval.
Okay, I need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Rochelle, second by Karina to approve the organizational chart as presented here. Any questions?
I do have some comments. I know I have spoken with Chairman Core and with Superintendent Behringer, and I think that it's important to know as a board that this doesn't come to the board typically. I think we've reviewed it, not for approval, but we've reviewed it in July when changes are made. And so we've kind of operated for a couple months in confusion, if I'm correct. Who's reporting to whom and whatnot, because we did have some changes. I am very concerned just with some current discussions around the state about changing titles. Right now, we have titles in our personnel policies and procedures, and I think we need to stick with those at least until we approve a new budget, because I believe that some of the discussion around the state about consolidation could lead to some red flags as far as adding not only an assistant because we didn't have one and now we have two and stuff. I think with the policies that we have in place, the adjustments of the titles should coincide with what we do with our budget and approval of that through our personnel policies. I like the layout, and when we've adjusted it in the past, there's been no title changes. So that was my only concern, especially in lieu of what's being discussed around the state.
Okay, Mark?
I think there's some title changes, but you also cut cost. So the state's going to have a hard time coming back and arguing with any of it when you do reduce cost with the way you laid the chart out. So I'm pretty solid because I think that's what we need to do is cut those costs and expand our, get it set up in a way that makes sense and you're good with. And so I think you did the right thing there.
Any other comments? I would just add that I think it's wonderful that we are in a process now of training and helping potential superintendents of this school district. And I like the idea. I think training within is good. So any other questions?
I just have a comment. I think the part I like is it's specific on who does what. And that way, if someone has an issue outside of the district, a parent, an employee, they know who to contact and what they deal with on a day-to-day basis and the responsibilities to the district.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Brenda's opposed. Motion carries. Thank you, Brenda, for your comments. Next item is superintendent board comments, and we'll save the swan song for last. Mark, you'd like to start us off tonight?
Sure. Project Lead the Way, I'm really intrigued with that. I really think it's an important thing. I think it picks up a lot of students that are otherwise lost due to hands-on. Many students are okay with being lectured to and learning and dissolving that information, but we lose a lot of kids from lack of hands-on. I could raise my hand to that one. So I think it's a very, very good thing. I hope we expand it. I hope it goes, and we will pick up kids that we would normally kind of lose. Special education, thank you, Demaray, for that. I think that's also important with integrating special needs or disabled kids into general education classrooms. They learn from their peers. They pick up goals and attitudes from their peers. So if there's a bunch of us just sitting around with all broken arms and we don't do anything but look at each other's broken arms, we're not moving forward. So I think that's very important. I think more of that, the better, in my opinion. So I think that I like both those presentations. Thanks for the audit stuff, and thanks for everybody's hard work. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, before you run off, you and I had a little bit of a discussion before the meeting about a study you recently learned from, and it's an update on the mental health of keeping our kids in schools. So can you bring us an update on that a little bit?
Yeah, there's some expanded information coming out of American Academy of Pediatrics and what's going on with kids that are being kept out of schools, and it so far as outside of not contracting COVID it's all negative. They're finding mental health issues, they're finding starvation issues, they're finding abuse issues. They're also finding funds and incomes to school going to fall off dramatically because many parents are now learning they can educate their own kids elsewhere. So school funding, school teacher programs are all going to start falling off. So it's a multifaceted problem. They're also saying risk benefit between children, not discussing what teachers' risks are, but children and their potential problems and complications with COVID versus the complications and problems they're having in not socializing, developing anxiety, many things. And as we get more reports and I can get them printed down, I'll give those to Craig and he can distribute them. But it is outside of the COVID contracting thing, all negative at this point.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Rochelle?
I want to touch on Project Lead the Way again. I think one of the biggest things that you see about it's not only the kids that are super excited, but did you see those teachers light up when they talked about it? Like, that's a big deal. And we really need to expand that and grow that. We could do something really special here with the minds and the industry we have, and we could really make ourselves stand out amongst everyone else. So it's something we really need to get in the high school and get going. And I would love to see that happen. So thank you for all your work on that one. And then congratulations to Steve, Brenda, Mark, and David. I look forward to working with you all. And Karina, I will miss you. So if you want to come and heckle Steve, I would welcome you. So thank you. And that's all I have.
All right, Brenda?
I want to congratulate our girls swimming team for taking state
Yahoo!
championship. That was awesome. And what a celebration. And so I also think that the Project Lead the Way is an awesome program. And thank you for being here and presenting that to us this evening and sharing that with us. And I would love to see that grow. So Alan, thanks for sharing about special ed. Chris, thanks for doing the budget. I think our district is in a great place and doing great things. So thank you. And thank you to the voters for re-electing. I love serving, and I am so fortunate to get to do it again for another 4 years. So,
all right. Thank you, Brenda. Appreciate it. Ashley?
I agree with everybody's comments today. Thank you for presenting to us about Lead the Way. It is an exciting program. And Alan, thank you for all that you guys do in your department. Wonderful things there too. Congrats to everybody reelected, and Dave, we're excited to have you on the board too. And Karina, you will be greatly missed. I just wanted to say a big thank you to our parents and students for sticking with us through all this. I did have a child quarantined and saw how much extra effort those teachers are putting in to make sure that those kids can stay on top of things. And I also saw how difficult it is for them to stay on top of things. So I just wanted to say thank you. I'm glad we're practicing in case we do have to have any sort of shutdowns. But I know last week I had a lot of calls and emails from people because there was a little panic throughout the district that we were about to shut down and go straight to tier 3. But I just hope everyone knows that I think I can speak for the whole board that we know how very important it is to have the kids in class and to have our teachers working in person with the kids.
Okay, thank you. Robin?
I'm going to play off of what you were saying a bit. I would sincerely like to thank our staff and students for their diligence in following the rules, sticking with the programs. I know how hard our janitors are working and our food service staff are working and our teachers are working. This is a really scary time, and it's frightening every day for me to know my kids are going off and being around a lot of people. I'd like to keep them, as close as possible, but I also understand some of the things that Mark was pointing out. I know it's important to them and they'd be devastated if they had to be home. That's why we have to be diligent and keep those masks on kids and do everything we can to keep them safe and in those buildings. And I think our staff is doing a phenomenal job at that.
All right, thank you. I'll go now, I guess, before we go to Craig and Karina. I had an opportunity to sit in on a Zoom meeting today with the governor, and he was visiting with the chambers of commerce and business leaders and business owners around the state. And he's in a tough spot. This stuff's getting out of control again. And you can just see he does not want to do some of the things that some of the surrounding states are doing. He's trying to do everything he can to keep it the way it is, but the numbers just don't lie. And I think a mask mandate, I personally think it would be an enforcement nightmare. I don't know how you would enforce it. And I can see a local business calling the police saying there's a gentleman that will not put his mask on and will not leave. And I can see the police showing up and trying to force the guy out of the deal. And I can see cell phones and I can see social media lighting up the sky that our police are harassing somebody over a mask. So I think the enforcement part of this would be very difficult, and I hope it doesn't go there. But I agree with what everybody else is saying here. If you can't social distance, wear the mask. I too want to thank the voters. I want to congratulate David, Mark, and Brenda. Looking forward to the next 4 years. Had a chance to watch that parade on Saturday night coming through Green River, and it's so cool when your school wins a state championship, and the police department, fire department, and ambulance, and all the people. There was over 100 cars not screaming, I shouldn't say that, running up You Win a Drive, and it's just so cool. And hats off to Colleen Seeloff and Rick Barker and that swimming staff. And I look forward to next month celebrating that state championship right here at the school board meeting. Chris, again, thank you so much for your wisdom and knowledge on that letter. I appreciate your efforts in that. And I had host support the whole thing in that letter, and I was pleased to sign that tonight. I'll echo what these folks said: student, teachers, employees, for your due diligence in keeping our schools open and keeping our kids in school. And I know this board feels the same way. We'll do everything in our power to keep these schools open. Some things are out of our hands. So keep the arrows where they belong, please. And I want to congratulate Dr. Foose, Dr. Demeray, Chris, and Tony on your new assignment. I know you'll do a great job with the organizational chart. Also, one other thing, I went to Jamie, I think in December when you guys elected me as chair, and the one thing I wanted to put on the agenda every month was something with curriculum. And I think you guys will agree that these presentations that we've had have been very good, and I look forward to those continuing. We have to approve resolutions, we have to approve budget and those kind of things, but it's kind of nice to not have to approve certain things that we're doing, like Project Lead the Way. So I appreciate that, and I look forward to those in the future. That's all I have. So Craig.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to congratulate the girls on their state championship swim team and the coaches and their parents. And one thing about swimming is you see about 10% of what they do, and they do about 90% of the work. The parents for getting their daughters up in the morning when they probably didn't want to get up to go to practice and after school, and the coaches for helping them through the challenges. Everybody wants to be a champion, but not everybody wants to put the work into it, and it's a lot of work. And so those girls will forget several things about their high school career, but they will not forget that. I'd also like to commend our district administrators. Last week, we got together and had a great discussion on what we should do if in the event we had to go to tier 3. And we fully agree that we will limp through this if we have to, but we will do what we can to be in school. And I think our solution that we came up with on the practice, similar to a fire drill or an emergency drill, is great for our kids. It will be better for our families. We hope we never have to use it, just like a fire drill. We hope we never have to vacate the building. So, but I'd like to thank our district administrators for the plan they came up with that. And that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Craig. Karina, your swan song, let's hear it.
Well, I hope you're not expecting something spectacular.
I
That's why
was,
did it
I really
before.
kind of am. I'm surprised you're not wearing your Chiefs gear and all that stuff.
I was gonna go all out. No, but I'm gonna echo a lot of what everybody has said, but that's okay because it's my last meeting. Congratulations, Steve, Brenda, Mark, David, on your election. You guys do a great job. I think I've said before, well, I said earlier, you guys have taught me so much, and thank you for taking me under your wing and answering my silly questions and listening to my rants and my raves, but I really do appreciate it. And David, you have some pretty big shoes to fill. Maybe you could shed a tear every now and then so they won't forget me. No, I'm just kidding. You'll be great. This is a great board. You're coming on at a great time. The presentations tonight, Project Lead the Way, Matt, your staff did a phenomenal job with that presentation. Their passion for the program, for their students to learn and to grow that program is very encouraging. To start it at the elementary school, and it's just going to flourish from there, which is awesome. Dr. Demaray, you impress me more every time I hear you speak. You're very smart. You know what you're doing. And we are very lucky to have you in the district helping our special services. So thank you for that. Chris, you and your team, your financials, the budget, predictions, all of that, your numbers, the way you explain things, I've really appreciated it over the years. Being able to talk with you and understand the budget, and you guys really do a great job. The board does a great job managing the budget, and kudos to you and your team. The staff, the admins, the principals, the teachers, the support staff, the bus drivers, I can't thank you guys enough for what you do in the district. You make the district such an amazing place to want to raise your kids, and I am very, very proud to raise my kids in Green River, Wyoming. The organizational chart, to everyone who was given the opportunity to take on more responsibilities, you guys deserve it. You have worked hard. You're dedicated to the district. You've put blood, sweat, tears into this district to make it what it is today, and you guys deserve everything, and just keep up the great work. I'm going to miss you guys sitting up here, listening to everything. I'll still listen to the board meetings, try to keep up to date as best I can. I will come in here and heckle Steve a couple times, I'm pretty sure. He deserves it. But I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate your guys' kindness, your willingness to work with me and to be there, and just what you do for the district and our community. My heart goes out to you. Thank you.
All right, not bad. No tears. I'm impressed. All right, one other thing I forgot to mention that I would really like to say, and that is I appreciate all 10 people that ran for the school board. To put your name on the ballot, to put it in front of the people and do the campaign and do all that stuff. If you've never done it, it's not easy to put your name before the voters. It's a difficult decision. And I know Robbie's in here, and I appreciate you coming here tonight, Robbie, and all the other board members or all the other people that put their name on the ballot. That's you are to be commended for doing that. So that's all I have. We do not have an executive session, so this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your attendance tonight. I appreciate it.